So, what if I told you that the digital cloud, the very thing our entire modern economy runs on, is actually built on ground that's way, way shakier than we've been led to believe? It turns out the abstract world of data has a very real and, frankly, a very fragile physical address.
And look, this isn't some scene out of a movie. According to reports from the Register, Amazon Web Services facilities out in the Middle East have actually been hit by drones. An Iranian news agency even claimed the attacks were a deliberate test, just to see what the U.S. dependencies were. All of a sudden, this theoretical risk, well, it just became a very physical, very explosive reality.
And that brings us to the question that just blew this whole conversation wide open. Posed by Rana Forhar and Richard Waters in the Financial Times, it forced the entire tech industry to look in the mirror and confront a really uncomfortable truth about the massive, hidden risks of our global cloud infrastructure.
All right, so let's really dig into this. How did we even get here? Well, the public story, the one everyone's talking about, it all starts with this one critical question from the FT.
Yeah, the facts that the Financial Times laid out, they're pretty stark. We've got confirmed drone strikes on critical AWS data centers. We have a state-aligned news agency basically saying, yeah, that was us. It was a test. The whole situation feels eerily similar to another ticking time bomb, right? The 92% concentration of high-end chip manufacturing over in Taiwan. So why? Why put everything in one basket? It's simple, really. The tech giants were chasing these massive government subsidies and cheap energy to try and offset their colossal spending on AI.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. The argument bubbling up is that this wasn't just some accident or a strategic blunder. No, some critics are calling it something way more deliberate and a lot more dangerous.
The term they're throwing around is financially driven suicide. And what does that mean? Well, the analysis suggests that in this frantic race to build out AI, big tech companies knowingly, consciously, ignored obvious, catastrophic risks, all in exchange for short-term financial perks. It was a trade-off they were willing to make.
And this chart really shows you why. You're looking at a staggering $200 billion in AI capital expenditure by the tech giants. That kind of spending creates a massive, almost desperate hunger for cost savings. And right on cue, Gulf states stepped up with these enormous subsidies and promises of cheap energy. And faced with that kind of money, it seems like the long-term geopolitical risk assessments just got pushed to the side.
So here's the bottom line, the crucial point. The choice was made to pursue rent-seeking, chasing after subsidies, basically free money, at the direct expense of building a resilient, secure global infrastructure. It was a huge gamble on stability, and they placed that bet in one of the most unstable regions in the world.
And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the problem. What we're seeing is a fundamental clash between two completely different ways of seeing the world. The clean, abstract language of finance versus the brutal, messy reality of physical conflict.
You look at this on a spreadsheet, and my God, it looks brilliant. You've got massive CapEx savings, government subsidies pouring in, cheap power. It's all boosting your EBITDA. It's the CFO's dream come true. But then you look at a map, and suddenly the whole thing looks completely suicidal. You're in a geopolitical tinderbox, your data center is now a physical target, and all the undersea cables it needs to survive are totally vulnerable. Your multi-billion-dollar asset can be taken offline by a $5,000 drone.
Someone in the Financial Times comments section actually said this, and it perfectly captures one way of thinking, right? That the abstract power of financial markets is the ultimate force, that it can overwhelm even the mightiest military hardware.
But here's the counterpunch, the brutal reality check from this analysis. A missile doesn't give a damn about your quarterly earnings report. When physical force comes into play, it just erases financial valuation. Your $200 billion cloud empire can be wiped out in a flash. At the end of the day, physical reality always gets the last word.
Look, it's so important to understand this isn't just some one-off incident. The sources are framing this as a symptom of a much bigger trend, a fundamental shift in global technological power. They're calling it a move from an era of imperial projection to one of a managed retreat.
And the timeline they lay out, man, it's pretty telling. In 2024, right now, we're at peak hype. You've got these massive subsidy deals, huge projects like the 1 gigawatt Stargate facility being announced. But fast forward to 2025 and 2026, that's when reality bites back with drone strikes and instability. The prediction is that by 2027, we're going to see a reckoning, a strategic managed withdrawal as these risks just become too big to ignore.
This whole situation also just torches a core promise of the cloud industry, the shared responsibility model. You know the deal. Cloud providers say they secure the cloud itself, and you, the customer, secure your data in the cloud. But what happens when the cloud itself, the physical building, the concrete and silicon, is just gone? Vaporized? The model completely falls apart. I mean, who's responsible then?
Okay, so if this is the new reality, what in the world does this mean for you? If you're a business leader, a CTO, a developer, what do you do? Well, it means you can't just be a passive tenant anymore. You absolutely need an escape plan.
Let me be really blunt here, because the sources put it this way. If your entire business roadmap, your whole strategy, depends on a single physical coordinate that can be deleted by a $5,000 drone, you don't have a strategy. You have a target on your back. Your digital assets are now officially part of a physical battlefield.
So what's the solution? The analysis proposes reclaiming what's called protocol sovereignty. Think of it like this. You build your own independent layer of control for your billing, for your data routing, for governance that sits above any single cloud provider. It's the key that lets you gracefully escape a burning house before the whole thing collapses. And they even give you some concrete first steps you can take, like right now. 1. Pull your cloud bills for the last 6 months. 2. Find your points of fragility. Mark every single service where the costs are going up, but the performance isn't getting any better. Those are your dependencies. And 3. Ask yourself the really hard question. Could you cut 30% of those services tomorrow without the whole business collapsing? If the answer is no, you are not in control. You lack sovereignty.
And really, this is what it all boils down to. It's one simple question you have to ask yourself. Are you a true digital partner in your own future with the power to make your own choices? Or are you just a digital tenant, renting space from a landlord whose house is quite literally on fire? Because the ultimate takeaway here is that the old way of doing things, that era of blind loyalty to one web services provider, it's over. It's dead. The new era is about demanding real business results and building a sovereign AI strategy that puts you, not some vendor, back in control of your own destiny.